So, in the final hours of preparation, President Biden is reportedly looking for ways to trigger Trump during tonight's CNN presidential debate. According to a report, here's a quote from it. President Joe Biden has been holed up at Camp David with advisors scripting put-downs and one-liners like Don Rickles that they hope will trigger a tantrum that makes Donald Trump sound unglued. This while Democrats reportedly in panic mode over CNN's decision not to live fact-check the former president. Joining us now is Trump 2024 National Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Karoline, what's your reaction to CNN's decision not to fact-check live and the reaction to it?
Well, we are certainly hopeful that CNN will live up to their name as the most trusted name in news tonight and actually ask good, tough questions of both of the candidates that are focused on the issues that matter. We hope that these moderators, who both have a long history of anti-Trump statements, will put those aside to, again, focus on the issues that matter to the millions of people who will be tuning in tonight. We hope they will ask Joe Biden why he lied to CNN's face on the debate stage in 2020 about the existence of the Hunter Biden laptop, and we hope that they will focus on inflation and immigration, because poll after poll shows us that both of those issues are the number 1 and 2 issues in this country right now.
There's about 6 topics, I understand. You guys expect about 2 to go, something you want to talk about from the border and immigration and foreign policy. They hope foreign policy. But the other thing would be about the January 6th and what happened in 2020. Will you accept the results of the 2024 election? How do you feel about that? Has the president worked on answers for that?
President Trump is asked that all the time. People know where he stands on both of those issues, and he will be prepared to address those tonight if they do come up. Of course, we expect them to. We certainly haven't been given the topics ahead of time. You'd have to check in with the Biden campaign if they have. But yes, President Trump is ready and prepared to address all issues that will come up tonight, and he's going to focus on his vision to make this country great again for the next 4 years.
You know, unofficially, I think this is the first time he enters a debate against Joe Biden. This will be his 3rd one now. He's actually leading in all the polls. Will that change the way he approaches this, being that there's not a poll I see that he's not in front? President Trump absolutely is the front runner in this race. He has the money. He outraised the Democrats in the months of April and May. He has the momentum. If you look at every poll, he's winning in all the battleground states. He's leading with independents, Hispanic Americans. He's winning a huge margin of the black vote right now. And it's because he has a winning message. So you will continue to see him do what he's been doing all over this country in every corner, from Detroit to Philadelphia. He's going to talk about his vision to secure our southern border, to rebuild our economy, to rebuild our military, to get us out of these wars that Joe Biden has created. And Joe Biden, I hear, is practicing a lot of one-liners. He's going to need a lot more than that to defeat President Trump tonight. He needs to answer for his abysmal record that has destroyed our country and created more crime and chaos. Right. So the president's preparation has been described to me as roundtable topics, things of interest, things that are likely to come up. They hear his response. It's more of a round table than it's standing up at your podium, rehearsal, make somebody play Joe Biden, and then you play Donald Trump. Yes, that's correct. President Trump has met with policy advisors to focus on the issues, again, that voters care about across this great country. Right. Other than that, he's been continuing with his very busy schedule. He doesn't need advisors to drill talking points into his brain. He knows what he wants to say, unlike Joe Biden, who we understand has been hiding away in the woods at Camp David for the past week. And I don't think it's getting enough attention how deeply concerning that is, the fact that the leader of the free world, the president of this country, cannot debate prep and also govern at the same time. We haven't seen Joe Biden in an entire week. So we expect him to be prepared tonight. I would hope after a whole week hiding away with his advisors, he will be ready to go. When you brought up some of the comments that the moderators made about President Trump in the past, you were cut off and dumped out of the show. You said President Trump was watching. What was his reaction of the way you were treated? Well, he wasn't surprised because he's been treated the same way by CNN over the past 8 years. And we expect that this will probably be a 3-on-1 fight tonight. We hope that it is not. Again, CNN has a chance to prove themselves as the most trusted name in news. And we hope that tonight will be a truly fair and honest debate focused on issues that matter to Americans across this country. But of course, we know how CNN has treated President Trump over the last 8 years. They have perpetuated many lies against him. And these moderators do have a history of bias. That's just the truth. All I was trying to do on Monday was address that truth, and they didn't like that very much.
Right. All right, Caroline. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll be watching tonight, and then can't wait to see the aftermath after that. Thank you, Caroline. Best of luck.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.